I see. And was that friend Ntando Mfowethu?
No, it wasn't him. It was a forwarded message.
I see. Underneath those pictures, at the top of page 130, you message Sergeant Nkosi saying, "They say he is coming for me, but." Who was coming for you?
Chair, like I said, the content of this was me making use of these weapons in our next shooting expedition. This was just me and Sergeant Nkosi saying, this was me expressing to him that I want to try out these weapons. No one was coming for me.
Was it an autocorrect error?
No, I'm not saying it's an autocorrect. I'm saying no one was coming for me. I don't recall the details of this discussion in particular, but what I want to put to the commission is that the contents around our discussion was that these were weapons that I had seen, and I wanted to try them out after it had been sent to me.
So you see a picture. Can you identify the man in the Vuitton 00 T-shirt that we see at page 129?
No, I can't see who's it.
So you see a picture of a man holding 2 automatic weapons. You message Sergeant Nkosi saying, "They say he's coming for me, but you can't remember who you were referring to."
Chair, like I'm saying to you, the content of this discussion was for me to try out those weapons. I don't really recall what was happening on that, but that was the discussion that I was having with Sergeant Nkosi. That I need to be ready. I need to be able to use weapons when whatever competitions that I want to attend in the near future, I need to be certain that I'm able to utilize these weapons accordingly. I love shooting.
Sergeant Nkosi thought that you were referring to someone in particular because he responds back saying he won't stand a chance.
Yes.
But you weren't referring to anybody.
No, Chair.
You spoke earlier about the removal of your security by, I think it was officers in Nkomo and Mabunda of the TMPD. You said that's why you asked Sergeant Nkosi who they were.
Yes.
And you stated then that your security was removed in December 2024.
Roughly December 2024, yes.
Yes. What security arrangements did you make following the removal of your security?
I didn't make any additional security arrangements. From a time-to-time basis, when I had to go to various events, I would ask Sergeant Nkosi to accompany me. What I had done is requested him for services of a driver.
Services of a driver?
Of a driver. Recommend me someone who can help me with driving.
And no one other than a driver?
Ad hoc. Sometimes we travel far, and I would see that the driver gets tired, and I would need to drive. So sometimes I would say, please beef up. I need an additional individual so that they can exchange between themselves when driving, because I didn't want to drive.
And this was just driving, it wasn't security?
No, it was driving ad hoc, various places.
Well, let's test that proposition. Can you go to page 97? There you text Sergeant Nkosi and you say, something is off with Bonkosi today.
Yeah.
Who was Bonkosi?
The driver, my driver.
The driver, right. And how long did you engage Bonkosi through Sergeant Nkosi?
From this point, it was from December.
Yes, but for how long did
from
Bonkosi
December,
stay?
So at this stage, it was about 1 month.
No, my question's different. How long did Bonkosi stay as your driver?
So maybe just to add some context, he was not permanent. It was an ad hoc arrangement where I would need him. I was driving myself, Chair. On certain instances where I would need him to assist me, he would come by and drive me. So it wasn't something that was a permanent arrangement. I would utilize him in some instances for 3 to 4 days in a month, some instances 10 days in a month. So it was not a permanent arrangement. It was as and when I required the need, Bonkosi would come and I would pay Bonkosi from myself.
And how long did that ad hoc arrangement last? When did you stop engaging Bonkosi, or do you still engage him?
Roughly, at this point, he stopped till about September-ish. I don't recall the exact date, But
So-
on an as and when basis, he still drives me.
So you say it stopped in September, but on an as and when basis, he still drives you?
Yes, when I need him. But it stopped in September. I drove myself, I think, for about 2 months on my own, and I started requesting to driving me again sometimes from the beginning of this year.
And Sergeant Nkosi put you in touch with Nkosi?
Yes, yes, he did.
And he was just a driver,
Just
not
a
a
driver.
security?
Just a driver, Chair, and would assist me with anything else.
So let's see what you say to Sergeant Nkosi at page 97. Something's off with Nkosi today. First, he's 30 minutes late when he picks me up. Second, he misses an off-ramp from the airport. Just informing you, keep it between us, don't act yet. What action were you contemplating that Sergeant Nkosi might take?
He needs to scold him, Chair. I mean, how does he pick me up late? So he needs to scold him. He allocated me this guy. He told me he's responsible, told me he's trustworthy. So the first point of me picking this up, before me addressing it directly, is, Sergeant Nkosi, you recommended a guy to me that you said was responsible. Picking me up at the airport is irresponsible. So you deal with it first before I take action on my behalf. That was the point of that.
So you understood Nkosi at some level to answer to Sergeant Nkosi?
Well, he introduced him to me. He indicated to me that he's responsible. I'm not saying he had to answer to him, but he's the one that recommended him for the job.
But if he wasn't responsible for Nkosi, what role would he have in disciplining or chastising Sergeant Nkosi? Nkosi?
Well, he introduced him to me. So he needs to be there to provide guidance when there's anything that goes wrong. Because the next action for me was to fire him and get someone else. So I always give people an opportunity, Jay. It's a fair opportunity that you need to give everyone. Could have been an honest mistake on that particular day. So the individual who introduced him to me needs to address the matter.
Well, why don't you address it directly with Nkosi? He's the one.
Yes. So at that point in time, there was no need for me. It was the first instance.
Yes, but if it's the first instance, why must Sergeant Nkosi address it rather than you? I mean, you sit in this man's car for large parts of the day, do you not?
He drives my car, he sits in my car.
You sit in your car being driven by him. You have the
Yes.
opportunity to raise complaints with his service.
Now, at this point, I give individuals the fair opportunity here. Like I said, this is how I deal with individuals. This is how I deal with potential areas of conflict. Whoever introduced me to him needs to address the matter. I mean, it's a fair opportunity. Because my next action from there is the second opportunity, and most likely I'll need to dismiss the individual. So it's how I do things. It's my way of managing people. It's how I just operate from a people management perspective.
So you were giving Sergeant Nkosi an opportunity to chastise Nkosi because absent that you'd have to dismiss him.
To scold him. He needed to scold him.
You didn't want to scold him.
At this point, there was no need for me. It's the first instance. When I intervene, I need to intervene with decisive action. I'm not just going to scold someone. I'm going to be at a point of saying, this happened on this occasion this happened. This arrangement is not working. I think we should part ways. That's how I do things, SC.
Well, let's look at how the chat progresses. 10:56, you say, we travel this road too much for him to miss an off-ramp. I'm just being cautious. What do you mean by that?
He was off, Jay. I mean, how do you miss an off-ramp that you travel so often? You know where we're going. How do you miss that? You're off. It means you're not concentrating. It means your mind is preoccupied with some other issues. Potentially, my life is not safe. If someone is driving me and is not concentrating, cautionary measures must be applied. Could be involved in an accident.
And you're not the one to take those measures yourself. You're not to say to him, Nkosi, you've just missed that off-ramp. What's going on here? Focus.
Chair, like I said, how I manage instances of this nature, I allow people a fair opportunity. It was the first time that this was occurring. I had raised it to the individual who introduced him to me. I've done this on some other occasions as well.
So the opportunity you're giving is to Nkosi?
Chair, I don't understand you, SC.
You said you allow people the opportunity. I'm just trying to understand who's getting the opportunity here. Is this Nkosi being given an opportunity by you because this is the first time he's messed up?
Indeed.
And how you give him that opportunity is you tell Sergeant Nkosi to reprimand Nkosi rather than reprimanding him yourself?
Because he introduced him to me and he told me he's a responsible individual, there was a massive element of irresponsibility in this case.
Well, let's see how the chat progresses. Sergeant Nkosi says, okay, please call me when you're alone. That's at 10:57 message time, 12:57. That's after your message at a minute previously. There is then a call in the same minute as Sergeant Nkosi has said, please call me when you're alone. And a minute later, you say to Sergeant Nkosi, I'm going to release him the minute we get home, my brother. Is that fine? So what happened to giving Nkosi the opportunity?
No, releasing him to go home. It's not fired. It doesn't mean he's being fired. It's me saying, today for the rest of the day, I'll drive myself moving forward. So you can go home. As I said, this was as and when. It's not a permanent arrangement. Pick me up from the airport, drop me off at home. From there, you can go home. I'm fine on my own. I'll deal with my own duties for the rest of the day.
And that comes after a...
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chaskalson. May I get an idea where this is taking us?
It's taking us to the relationship with Sergeant Nkosi, and it's taking us to the relationship with Sergeant Nkosi, and to the witnesses' failure to disclose the full extent of that relationship.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You say, I'm going to release him the minute we get home, my brother. Is that fine?
Mm-hmm.
And Sergeant Nkosi says, not now. Just finalize all your today's meetings and tomorrow you will decide. It must not be obvious to enemies that bodyguard was for only December. Let's confuse them for 2 or 3 days. It's your call, Mfowethu. So Sergeant Nkosi regards Nkosi as a bodyguard, does he not?
That's what he says here.
And why would he think Nkosi is a bodyguard when all you've asked for is a driver?
Well, I'm not going to comment on why he wrote that. I've asked for a driver. He was my driver. You can see the contents of our discussions is that of an individual who's driving me. If it's a bodyguard, there would be no reason for me to even release him. Also, to be quite frank, a driver can't be a bodyguard because he's concentrating on driving. How is that guy safeguarding my life if he's focusing on driving and concentrating on the road? So I requested him for service of a driver, and that's how I viewed that request.
So Sergeant Nkosi clearly regarded Nkosi as a bodyguard. He was speaking of enemies, and enemies needing not to know that you would be without a bodyguard after December.
I can't comment on Sergeant Nkosi's message. I can comment on what I requested for, what this relationship was about, and how I understood it at the time of request, and how I still understand it now, SC.
So your response to Sergeant Nkosi, immediate response, okay, my brother, in order. So he's saying, let's confuse your enemies for 2 or 3 days. Can't be obvious to them that the bodyguard was only for December, and your response is, okay, my brother, in order. It's not, what are you talking about?
For me, what was in order was not to release him for the day. Let him continue driving me. Sergeant Nkosi was probably thinking for me that I probably had traveled late. I was on a flight. I must be tired. So why would I start driving myself now if I already have him for the day? My understanding and my response of saying, okay, my brother, that's in order, was purely meant at the advice that he was saying, no, finalize your duties for the day, and then you can decide what to do.
So the reference to bodyguard and enemies was just a bizarre suggestion of Sergeant Nkosi. You didn't know what he was referring to?
No, Chair, I didn't know what I was referring to. I focused on the content of why I had engaged him and the advice that he was providing me. And that advice was, just finish what you have to do for today. Then you can release him if you want. That was relevant for me.
Let's go down to page 287. top of page 287, on the 17th of May, 6:58 p.m., 8:58 actual time, Sergeant Nkosi calls you and says, Mvwetu, how's it? I'm told tomorrow you got a trip. I'm arranging extra personnel. Is he not arranging security personnel for you?
It's an additional driver, so drivers can swap. Remember, I indicated that I don't prefer driving, Chair. So when a driver gets tired, instead of me taking over the wheel, I prefer someone else take over the wheel and proceed with the trip. I prefer not to drive at all. I had noticed that when it's just Nkosi and myself, I would see that he's tired throughout the driving process. Of course, then we have to swap. There was a major inconvenience for me. I don't like to drive. Hence, I said it was preferable to bring someone else so that they can exchange between themselves, so I can sit back and do what I normally do.
And let's go to page 307. You say at 6:33 message time, can you help me with a beef up tomorrow, my brother? I need Nkosi to drive the madam to Sosh tomorrow, May, about 11. Is Soshanguve?
Yes.
And he says, okay, cool, on it. 2 guys will do, or more. Why would you need more than 2 people to drive to Soshanguve?
All right. I think you need to understand, Chair, that if you were to drive the madam, they need to drive on their own. I'm not going there. I had other responsibilities to do. So if you bring 2 people, the other one must drive with me, while the other one drives the madam. That's why you need 2 or more people.
Why would you ever need more than 2?
If it's a long trip, Chair, sometimes if it's a long trip, you need more than 2.
From where?
Depends. It could be from Joburg to Nelspruit. But in this instance, the more than 2 was that one would continue driving the madam, while the others would drive me.
So what trip were you talking about? Where was the madam? What was the trip that involved the madam going to Soshanguve? Where was she starting?
Chair, that's a private and confidential matter. I will not answer that question with all due respect.
No, it's not a private confidential matter. It's testing what seems to be a very implausible answer to a question that I put to you under oath.
For me, answering where an individual was driving the madam, was driving her to Sosh.
To Sosh, from where?
From Joburg.
You need 2 drivers, more than 2 drivers, to drive from Joburg to Soshanguve.
So the other would drive me.
To where?
To the office and all my other responsibilities, Chair.
Yes, we've got 2 drivers now. We've understood that there is a need for 2 drivers. Why do you need more than 2 drivers?
Because one would be driving the madam and 2 would continue to drive me.
To drive you back and from the office, you need 2 drivers.
Not only for the office. What if I was going to a trip outside the province?
You see, Mr. Mnisi, what I want to put to you is that your answers on this line are actually false, and that it's quite clear that Sergeant Nkosi was providing protection for you.
Okay.
What's your response to
I
that?
disagree with that. He was not providing protection for me. Did not pay him in any instance or any form. I would pay the individuals that he would allocate or recommend to drive me on an as and when basis. So I completely disagree.
We're not
with
talking about payment at the moment. We're talking about whether these individuals were providing security to you.
that. From my understanding, these are driving services.
And when he refers to enemies and bodyguards, he's just got it wrong.
He'll need to answer that for himself, Chair.
I see. When you were asked in paragraph 2.5 of the Regulation 10.6 notice, have you received any payment or benefit from Sergeant Nkosi, whether directly or indirectly? Please also address whether you received payment from a third party through Sergeant Nkosi. Your response mentioned, I've not received any payment or benefit either directly or indirectly from Sergeant Nkosi. I further confirm I've not received any payment or benefit from a third party from Sergeant Nkosi. I do, however, wish to state that on a few occasions, Sergeant Nkosi accompanied me to meetings and or gatherings because I felt unsafe or vulnerable, purely as a friend. I never perceived or understood him accompanying me to be a benefit of sorts for either of us. You recall that?
Yes, that's my statement, and that's what I provided to the commission.
So there were occasions where you needed security. You felt unsafe.
He's a friend. He's got a physical presence. So if I go with a friend with a physical presence, I feel a bit safer.
But you didn't see fit to mention that he had provided people who he described as bodyguards to you.
I had to provide a sworn statement of my understanding as per my request to him. Can't provide a statement on what he might think of situations. And as per my sworn statement, Chair, is that he provided me with a driver, and I do state that in my sworn affidavit, and I further go on to disclose to the commission that there are some instances as well where Sergeant Nkosi himself, he would go with me, but not the people. The people, it's something completely different because I'll pay those from my own pocket. Where he himself comes, I view that as a possibility of being viewed as a benefit. However, I'm clarifying that there was no financial exchange, so there's no benefit that he obtains, number one. Two, he's a friend. We socialize with a number of activities together, and I disclosed that as fairly as I could to the commission.
Let's look at other aspects of your relationship with Sergeant Nkosi. Can we go to page 100?
Page 100, yes.
11th of January. You actually, 6:17 a.m. message time, 8:17 a.m. actual time. You message him, off on an urgent meeting in Durban, will be back later today, just an in and out. Morning, my brother, go well, he responds. You say, cross your fingers, Mfowethu, going for a massive business deal that side. Do you recall what the business deal was?
Yes, it's a personal matter that I had to go through.
Yes, well, can you tell me what it involved?
I'm going to object to my learned friend's line of questioning. The meeting is private and confidential, and if my learned friend's case is that it's relevant to the work of the Commission, I would respectfully request that he motivates why this is relevant to the work of the Commission. Thank you, Chairperson.
It's relevant to the work of Commission because Sergeant Nkosi's answer is, my man, I'm crossing my fingers. I know when you grow, I will grow too. I stand by the question, Chair.
I respectfully stand by the submissions that I made in this regard. To disclose here his private, financial or business affairs with respect is not part of the work of the Commission.